Straightforward Farming. News and comment brought to you by FTFB. Now, Straightforward Farming. Hello, folks. Welcome back to the Straightforward Farming Network. I'm your host, Tony Reed, alongside Mr. Nick McCormick. We're here in the freshly revamped FTFB studios. What do you think, Nick? This is your first time being in here.
It's nice. I like it. I like it a lot.
It's been quite the project, but we needed it done. My feet used to get cold sitting here on the
That's
concrete.
true. Yeah.
Had a lot of echo in the room, and it was time to take the next step, right?
I like it. I'm eyeing that stagger hat in the corner. If that comes up missing, that was not my fault.
That is my favorite hat on the wall in this room. I like it.
Nice.
I don't remember where that come from. Somebody sent me a couple of them. There's a couple Steiger hats as you look around there. So
Yeah.
Yep. So tonight we've got our lovely wives with us again. It's just been one of those, what do you want to call it? The doldrums of winter. We're running out of content, so we got to bring in special guests.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You got bored, so you brought in the wives.
They're like a dog. Once you're nice to them, they just keep showing back up down here in the
As
podcast
usual,
room.
we're their safety net.
Yeah.
Yep, got to bail us out.
Yeah.
That's all right. Yep. So what do you guys want to talk about?
You always ask that question, and I always never know how to answer you.
Probably with what you want to talk about would be a good answer.
I don't know what I want to talk about. I'm a pretty easy person to please. I mean, you guys bring up the topic, I'll talk about it. That's fine.
True. Same here.
Okay, fine. I'll start you out. So last night, typical evening, we go to bed. Tony turns on the TV, and I told him, I said, do not turn on anything interesting because you will fall asleep and I will stay awake all night. And he's like, oh, I won't. Next thing I know, I'm sucked into a Garth Brooks documentary. It was, 12:30 before I finally fell asleep?
Yeah, probably. What was that called? The Garth Brooks, The Road I'm On, I think. It was on Netflix, and I think it was originally like an A&E biography or something maybe, but It was pretty good. I used to be a big Garth Brooks fan. Then he got a little weird personally. Still love his music, but he got a little kind of weird personally. But overall, I mean, still,
it was an interesting documentary. I
Yeah.
learned a lot of things about him that I didn't know. So
Yep. You was always a big Garth fan back in the day, Nick. I know.
Yeah, I liked him back in the day.
You've seen him, a couple times in concert?
Yeah, I wouldn't walk across the street see him again, but he puts on a great show if you're into that sort of thing.
Right. Yeah.
He's no Kid Rock, but yeah.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, you went to the Kid Rock concert there.
Absolutely.
2 nights. What'd you think of that?
Awesome.
Awesome.
Best concert I've ever been to by far.
Really?
I'm going to try to see him again.
No kidding.
It's his farewell tour. If I can pull it off here, I'm going to try to see him again if I can.
How was that? Was it younger crowd, older crowd? Where?
It was much different than I thought it would be. So I told Kelly the whole time, I'm like, yeah, I'm going to be this old dude at this Kid Rock concert, or whatever. I would say that the average age was probably 5 years older than me.
Really?
Yes, on average.
I wouldn't have guessed that.
It was a very unique crowd. Like I said, there was a lot of people much older than me. I sent Kelly a picture of the people in front of me. There was a lot of gray hair in the crowd.
No kidding.
Which was fine, And there were some young people too. There was even a few kids and whatnot. But
really?
Yeah, it was a great show. Absolutely great show. I don't want to spoil it for anybody, but it's definitely worth going to see.
When,
like I said, it's his
when
last
did he
tour.
get popular? Like early 90s?
Late 90s.
Late 90s?
Like my freshman or sophomore year of college, maybe.
I was going to say, I think Cowboy came out like when I was like 23 to 25, probably early, like 2002, 2003. What was it? Something in that range?
It was earlier than that.
Was it?
Well,
I probably just discovered it about that time. I'm like on the 2 years.
It would have
later.
been roughly my sophomore year. Because I remember after a friend of mine got engaged, a buddy of mine was playing some music. We're all sitting in the back lot celebrating and whatnot. That's the first time I heard Only God Knows Why. And that would have been circa 1999.
No kidding.
2000.
I hear something in the background. You guys hear that?
Yeah.
Is that the kids?
I don't know.
It's some kind of
I don't know.
music
I hear
TV show something.
It's hard to say.
We're going to have to add soundproofing to the room next.
Yeah.
So we are taking donations for that if anybody would like to chip in. It'll be all right.
But no, you gotta love a concert that starts off with, well, I am going to throw a few things out there. That starts off with probably a 2-minute pre-recorded prayer by Kid Rock.
No kidding.
And had a pre-recorded message from the illustrious 45th President of the United States, Donald J. Trump.
Really?
Which was pretty cool.
Yeah. Did he have anybody open for him?
Grand Funk Railroad.
No, God, I ain't heard that name forever.
Well, I'm not sure they've heard anything forever either because they are getting up there in age as well.
What was the song they had that was popular?
Oh, I was just going to tell you, but now I've lost it. American Band is one of their
their
biggest ones probably. But one of their guitarists did the Star Spangled Banner, Jimi Hendrix style, which was pretty cool to see.
I bet that was awesome.
Yeah.
Yep. I never listened to any Kid Rock music. I guess when he was popular, I didn't listen to much outside of country music at the time. But overall, as a person, I think him and I would get along great.
I think we'd have a great time. If we could get him on the podcast, that'd be awesome.
Yeah, and doesn't he live in like a double wide trailer? I mean, just like
in Tennessee, yeah, he's got like a little modular, and he's like, I'd rather have some land and some fast cars and four-wheelers and stuff for my buddies to screw around in as opposed to a big house. The one interview I saw with him, he's like, I had a house with like 13 bathrooms and a theater room. He's like, you know when I used the theater room? When I got lost going to one of the 13 bathrooms and I passed out on the floor.
Yeah.
He's like, I don't need any of that anymore. I've been down that road. It's a waste of time, waste of money.
Yep.
Not the lifestyle.
I don't blame him. Don't blame him a bit.
Yeah. Yeah. It was an excellent show.
Well, good.
Yeah. I'd highly
Sheryl
recommend
Crow
it.
with him to sing Picture?
No.
Did he sing that?
He did sing it. And I can't think of the gal's name that sang it with him.
I would think him and her's personalities would clash kind of big time. Because remember Sheryl Crow, what was that, been 10 years ago, about everybody had to use one square of toilet paper now to save the planet, and that's just about as opposite Kid Rock as you can get.
You remember her Confederate flag leather pants for the one video, though? Can you see that happening in today's world?
No, I don't guess I remember that.
Yes,
I don't
her
remember
one
that.
video, she was wearing Confederate flag Confederate flag leather pants.
Really?
Yes.
Wow.
What was the name of the song?
I can't remember now. Kelly will know here
Was
in a second.
was it one of her songs?
It was one of her songs, yes. But yeah, it was a great show. Like I said, he basically said, he's like, hey, I'm still having a great time doing this, but my second grandkid's on its way, and I want to spend time with him. And you can't knock a guy for that.
No, you can't.
And honestly, that show was so high energy. I don't know how he does it at 51, to be honest with you. I was tired from watching him.
Really?
That's why I was just going to ask how old he actually was. So 51.
Yeah, 51, I think. Yeah.
Yeah, that's
He's
pretty.
one I would like to see.
No, you better hurry. But he's in St. Louis before too. It's Bowling Green weekend, though. Otherwise, I'd totally be there.
Yep.
But he's coming to Nashville, and I'd really like to go to that one.
Will that
It's
tour
during planting season.
be over in 2022? Or I know sometimes
Yeah.
a farewell tour lasts a year and a half.
I think
or-
October it ends.
Really? Yep, that's pretty neat.
Yeah, he did a.
I couldn't tell you the last concert I went to. It's been a while.
I'll
One
warn
of
you, if you're a flaming libtard, probably not the show for you. Preface it with that. Probably not the show for you.
So on the same line as Kid Rock, one of the best concerts I ever went to was to see Ted Nugent at the State Fair. And I think I was 18 years old. I went with my mom and my aunt, and it just totally blew me away. But his whole, like, you know how they have their stage and they put props up or whatever. It was nothing but guns, the entire thing. And I was like, oh, yep, this is
Ted
what
was
we're doing.
always a little out there for me, not as a person, but I cannot listen to his music at all. I mean, it's
I
just,
love
He's
his
the Motor
music.
City Madman, Tony.
right. I can't do it. It just
You're
it's
not
weird.
into the what I would consider harder rock,
No,
and he was
not at
more
all.
considered harder rock.
As
I
a
think.
person, phenomenal guy. In fact, at the SHOT Show one year out in Vegas, I did meet him. Like, he was overdoing something with a whole mob of people around him, and then when he got done or whatever, he slipped out kind of behind the ropes or whatever. Then he just walked right down through the middle of the SHOT Show, him and his wife or whatever, and they were leaving. And I mean, we literally almost brushed shoulders, but I never said nothing. I mean, he didn't.
Why?
Either, just kept-
Why didn't you say something?
I guess.
He would have been a cool guy to be like, yeah, I shook Ted Nugent's hand.
Right, but I guess on the same token, I wasn't a Ted Nugent fan, and then it's like, what are you going to do if you go to shake his hand and he, tells you to go to hell or what, or whatever.
Name one song before you say any
Yeah,
more words to me.
yeah.
Name one
He's
song.
not going to. All you had to do is just reach out your hand and be like, hey, Ted Nugent, nice to meet you. That's all you had to do.
Yep. I
That's
got
it.
pictures of him, and then I met Rick Perry when he was still the governor of Texas. I sat and talked to him for a little bit. It was funny because that was just a few years before he ran for president. And, on the national level, nobody really knew him. And him and I sat there at a booth and talked for probably 4 or 5 minutes, just the two of us, just kind of shot the shit back and forth or whatever.
You think he's sitting around somewhere telling his buddies, "Hey, I talked to that growing corn guy for 4 or 5 minutes back in the day
Now he is.
before he
He
was
is.
famous. I used to talk to that guy."
And then I met the Gunny from Full Metal Jacket. He was there. He was at the Glock booth that year.
Arlie Ermey.
Yep. And seen Lou Ferrigno, the Incredible Hulk. I didn't get to talk to him or shake his hand. He was working one of the booths or whatever, and there was a big line. But I seen him, but I didn't meet him or nothing. So
there's quite an interesting crowd at these gun shows.
At that one there is. I mean, there's a lot of...
The Vegas one?
Yeah. Or there used to be. I
was going to say, how many years has it been since you've been to that one?
Oh, gosh, that's probably been 10 years ago at least.
Was it?
It's been
Okay.
a long time.
Probably, yeah.
It'd still be cool to meet Ted Nugent, I think.
Well, no doubt.
Just going to throw that out there.
I got pictures of him. I mean, from
I know you sent
5
him
feet
to
away
me.
or whatever, but yeah, had it been anybody else, there might have been a chance I would have stood in line to get a picture of somebody. It was just...
I always figured at some point in time, like those celebrities that big, though, like they almost prefer if you just pass them by. I saw a Jordan interview that one time. He's like, I just wish people maybe casual wave or nothing and just walk right on by.
Yep.
At this point, and I'm like,
Right. Yeah. I get it.
Well, I was going to say, I think, where you fall all over him, oh my gosh, it's Ted Nugent. Or if, just, hey man, nice to meet you, walk on. They'd probably be okay with that.
Yeah,
I think it's the people chasing them down. And
yeah.
Because, I mean, to them, when you've literally done it a million times, it would just get very old, I would think.
Yeah.
I mean, we seen that on Garth Brooks' deal there on TV, that he would literally stand until 5 o'clock in the morning signing autographs after concerts,
Yeah, I can see that.
Right.
And I would think eventually that would get old. But
Yeah.
yeah, but I also think, though, that if you really love what you do, and he seems to really love what he does, that's probably also what feeds your love of it, because you know that you get to be a small part of what makes these people happy and gets them. And so that's got to feel good too,
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, it sounds like he would always go well out of his way to accommodate fans in any way that he could. So
that was like, he talked about that one show he did, and he had done the encore, and he walked out, and there was a girl at the concessions, and she was like, what does that feel like? And he's like, what? And she said, what does that feel like to be out there? And he took her out on stage with her. And I was like, I can't even fathom, what that felt like for her. But he was just like, yeah, I'm going to take you out here and show you exactly what it feels like. So.
I got a good Garth Brooks story for you. So I think he is a good guy, like political beliefs aside, wherever he's gone, et cetera. But so my cousin was born with a immunity issue. And when he was like 10 or 11, he, I can't think of the word. The sickness you get from being around like birds and the fowl and he and his
The bird flu?
No, it's what is that called? I cannot remember. But anyway,
Allergies.
Come on back.
Everybody just sort of thinks out.
He got super, super sick and was in the hospital, and they gave him some experimental medicine, and it backfired. And little bit by little bit, his body just started turning on him. Central nervous system, like eventually he started stumbling, walking, having issues talking, etc. And the doctors couldn't do anything about it, couldn't turn it around. And so he was on the Make-A-Wish Foundation list, and he wanted to talk to Garth Brooks on the phone. And so by the time it was arranged, Luke could no longer talk at that point. But he had told his mom and dad what questions he wanted to ask Garth Brooks. So my aunt and uncle go out and buy, a speakerphone because the day is coming. Garth's flying to some concert, and he's going to call Luke, and Luke's going to get to ask him his questions. And so the time comes and goes, and the phone call never comes. And this is in Mahomet, Illinois, right outside of Champaign, Illinois, okay? And so all of a sudden there's a knock on the door. And my Aunt Dana answers it, and there's this woman, and she's like, is this the home of Luke? I won't say the last name. And they're like, yeah. And so she turns, and there's an expedition in the driveway, and she waves at him, and out gets Garth Brooks and Trisha Yearwoods. They had been flying to a concert in the Carolinas, I believe, and so Garth had been asking, okay, what's the story? Who am I calling? And his assistant explained that my cousin couldn't talk anymore, but his mom and dad were going to be there to ask the questions. And he's like, well, then why in the world are we even calling? Let's just stop. So they stopped at the Champaign airport, got a car, and drove to their house. And so they have pictures of my cousin sitting on Garth's. Of course, my Aunt Dana is like, oh my gosh, my house.
Yes.
That's where we go immediately, but they have pictures of Garth and Trisha sitting in their living room, and Garth was great. He pulled Luke over on his lap, and, Dana asked Luke, his questions, which was, the first one was, when you're walking through a pasture, do you watch where you step? Because they raised cattle. And Garth's like, no. And then his other question was boxers or briefs. And Garth's like, a true man never tells. Yeah. But they were really, really great. And so I think he has a big heart, even though we maybe don't agree on some things, and really went out of the way in that situation.
And that's where I've come to a realization on a lot of this stuff, because his original music, when he very first started, loved it. I mean, it was just phenomenal music. He reshaped country music. And even though there's a lot of stuff him and I don't agree on now, I'm not going to turn my back on him, only because I'm sick of cancel culture. When we don't agree with somebody, we have to completely shut them down, and I don't agree with that, and I'm no different if I say, well, I'm just burning all my Garth Brooks CDs, It's not like it's going to make a hill of beans to him financially now if I listen to a song that he recorded in 1990 that I've already bought the CD from.
That's true, yeah.
And so
I'll still listen to it.
That's how I am. I'm not going to, right or wrong, there's probably people that don't agree with that, but if you don't agree with cancel culture, then don't participate in it.
Right.
Is the way I see it.
Right.
Agree.
And I also think that it's important that we can have differing beliefs, but I can still see the good in you. Because that's what I told him when we got done watching. I was like, I really was going into that like, I'm not going to like him. And I was like, after seeing like the sacrifices he made for his kids and stuff like that, I was like, I got to respect that. Even if I don't respect some of his political beliefs, I have to respect what he did for his kids, his family, to make that.
I'm more of a fan of the George Strait type. You never hear a word about the man. Ever. Never. And I mean, as far as what he done in his private life, about, even helping people in need, and he's done that, millions of times, just like the rest of them. But it's not like he's in it for the glory. And I'm not saying Garth is either. But, he just keeps to himself. I mean, I couldn't tell you today if George Strait's a Democrat, Republican, whatever. He keeps all that to himself. He doesn't say a word about it. And I'm more of a fan of when they do it that way, and there's no tension.
My favorite George story is whenever they filmed Pure Country, and he would not kiss the woman, the actress or whatever, because he was married. And I was like, you know what? I got to respect him for respecting his vows. He's having money thrown at him. You're just acting, whatever. And he was like, nope, not going to happen. And it took nothing away from the show at all. It was still a great show.
Well, it wasn't like he needed the money at that. I mean, that was early in his career, but by then it was made anyway, Yeah. I'd have just been like, fine, that's the way we're going to do it, or I'm not doing a movie. Plain and simple.
Yeah.
But I don't know. We talked in the past. I can't imagine being in their shoes, because you see it with Garth Brooks, especially like on that deal. They were on the road, or I'm not going to say. I thought he said they'd done 425 shows in 365 days. I think is what he said. It was something.
I don't remember.
Just a staggering number, and that's what his ex-wife, because they had her on this documentary too. And she said there was always a period of time from, I think it was 3 o'clock in the evening till 5 o'clock, where that was her and the kids and Garth's time. They might be on stage rehearsing, doing whatever, but that was the only time she got to see him, because either she was at home with the kids and he was on the road, or if she went with him, it still didn't matter. I mean, his priority, his priority, I mean, that's probably a fair shake. His priorities was with the music, and I mean, it ended up costing him his marriage in the end.
And he even said that in the documentary. He's like, I sacrificed everything for my music. And he's like, I sacrificed my marriage and my kids. And it just hit me. I was like, no, I'm not going to do that anymore. And that's why he walked away.
It makes me wonder when you see guys like Garth Brooks, and, because there's always a one-hit wonder, or you might get somebody that might have had 3 or 4 good songs. They just kind of faded off, and you sort of forget about them. Then 10 years later, you hear their name. You're like, man, I wonder whatever happened to that guy. And I always wondered if that's what separates the two, is the drive that a guy like Garth had to just go, and sign autographs till 5 o'clock in the morning, to where maybe this other guy didn't do that. He might have only signed autographs for 45 minutes after the show. I wonder I wonder if
But
that,
I also
if
think
that really pays
that
off.
factors into your passion for it. Like,
Oh, I agree.
Garth's super passionate about it. Like, he flat out said, besides his wife and his kids, music is it for him. Whereas some people, they're more in the music for the fame, the money, whatever. And so when you don't have that passion driving you, you don't care as much. And that comes through. People can see that.
Right.
Well, and the other thing is maybe some of those people value their personal life more than their music. Not that they're not passionate about the music,
right?
But they're like, I'm not losing my wife and my kids,
right?
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think so much of the time we don't know about it too. When Faith Hill and Tim McGraw were in 1883 here this last year, I read an interview with Faith Hill, and she's like, "Well, when I retired from music 12 years ago to stay home and raise my kids," and I was like, "You retired? Yeah, you're right. You've not come out with an album."
Yeah.
And we didn't even, there was no big fanfare. She was just like, you know what? We traveled with the kids while they're younger, but the oldest is in junior high now, and she's in sports and activities, and we can't do what we used to do, and I'm going to retire. I'm going to stay home for the next 10 years till they're all in college, et cetera. And then I'll do something, but, and you don't even realize it. And I admire that.
Absolutely.
I
do too.
completely admire it.
Yeah, for sure. That's something to be commended. I mean, to leave that kind of money. I mean, it's not like you left a $40,000 a year job. I mean,
right.
But I guess it's easy to do too if you've already made $25 million. I mean, what does it matter at this point? I'd rather stay home with my kids, and then when they're raised, then we can go do something else. I don't know.
Well, and I liked how, Garth retired for 14 years, and he's like, okay, I'm ready to come back. And when he came back bigger and better than everybody out there. And I think it was because he made such an impact. The first go round, people are just dying to see him the next go round. And so I also think that kind of how you leave it on the table, when you left like he did in the height of his career and had accomplished so much, and then you do come back, there's going to be those people that are there waiting for that. Like, they are just praying, please let him do one more tour, because I would love to see that,
Well, I mean, Garth really revolutionized the country music industry in the 90s.
Absolutely.
I mean, prior to that, no offense to George Strait, but George, I've been to his concerts. He's sitting on a stool with his guitar. It's very quiet. It's a smaller venue. And then all of a sudden you have someone like Garth come on who it becomes, there's the
lights,
entertainment.
fireworks.
More theatrics to it.
Yeah, et cetera.
And it moved from
stadiums.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, moved to stadiums.
And so I don't think he meant to, but he was that beginning wave of the pop country music era.
He paved the way for pop country.
Yeah,
absolutely.
That is still out there today, and so I loved his music. I mean, it was the soundtrack of my childhood. Him, Alabama, Reba,
Alan
Black,
Jackson.
Shania Twain.
Oh my gosh,
Yeah, Alan Jackson. I've seen all of them in concert, and sitting around at cattle shows playing euchre and listening to that on cassette tapes. I mean,
I wish
love
country
all of
music
them.
would go back to like some of Garth's original music that made him popular. That, and even then, that was getting a little out there for the previous generation of country music, but it was good music.
He had a little bit what I'll call rodeo country for a little bit, and then he drifted off into pop country pretty
I
quick.
still think his song "Much Too Young to Feel This Damn Old" is probably in the top 5
it's
of my
great.
most favorite songs of all
It
time.
is a great song. Calling Baton Rouge gets me riled up.
Yep.
Like, that's just like, that was on my running playlist for years. It just, and
In the
what's
cell
funny,
phone world, that song doesn't even make sense.
well, yeah, that's true. What's funny is when we saw him on concert a few years ago, he plays in concert 3 times the normal speed. And so we got in the car and we start playing it, and it was like, calling Baton. It was so slow compared to in the concert.
And that's another thing, like the energy he brings to the
Yeah.
stage when he's out there, like he's given 250%. And like, I think, or I don't know if you were still awake, but like whenever he was talking to all the band people or whatever, and he was like, if you think you know how to give a good concert, no, we're giving the best one tonight. And he like demanded they give everything, and they did. And that's what made those shows just amazing.
It's always funny though how certain songs come around, because the vast majority of artists don't write their own songs. I mean, they might have one in the mix or something, but it told in that, like I think it was If Tomorrow Never Comes, was found at the Bluebird Diner or whatever, that place where everybody was going for open mic, and all these no-name people that were singing them. and it sounded totally different than the version that we're
Yeah.
used to.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's funny how it changes and evolves and ends up the way that it does to the way that we know it. But
Well, he found, oh man, I just saw this on TikTok. Oh gosh, I wish I would have saved that video where he was, a guy was singing in, I think it was the Bluebird Cafe or one cafe, and it was in the middle of the week. Nobody was there, etc. Some guy came up to him and asked his name and number afterwards. And he was like, I don't have a record deal, but someday I'm going to have a record deal and I'm going to call you and I'm going to buy the options to that song. That's one of the best songs I've ever heard. And it was Garth Brooks and it was The Dance.
yeah.
He's like, it was
Yeah.
just, there's like 3 people in the audience and one of them happened to be Garth and it was before he had a record deal and he came,
Yep.
and he's like, he held his word. He called me and said, I got a record deal and I want to option that song, and career maker for both of them.
It's always funny to me too. You'll see different stuff behind the scenes, and it might be Alan Jackson talking to George Strait, and there's a song in there that George Strait released. Alan Jackson tried it. He didn't like it, so he let it go, and George picked it up. And it always makes you wonder how different that song would have been
Yeah.
had it went the other way, because it had a totally different sound, and it would never be the song that we know today.
It's the same as whenever you are like your favorite TV shows and you hear about the actors that like Friends, perfect example, like the people they wanted to play Ross and Rachel, and you think about that and you're like, man, how would that have changed the dynamic of the show? Would it have even worked? Would it have been as popular as it was? So.
Well, I saw Brad Paisley talk in an interview about what was his real famous song that launched him. It was the one about fishing and missing her.
Yeah.
What
I'm
was
gonna-
that called?
I'm gonna miss her.
I'm gonna
Okay.
miss her.
He said he put that out there, and in 24 hours, like Garth Brooks, Alan Jackson, and George Strait had all put options on it. They all wanted it, and so he's like, he had to decide right then, as a poor songwriter, do I sell this out, or maybe I should record it myself if there's this much interest in it, you
Yep.
know? And so, yeah.
One of the best documentaries I ever seen was Ken Burns' Country Music. Have you seen
Oh,
that?
I have not.
Yes.
You've got to watch that.
love
and it's,
Ken
I don't
Burns
know what
documentaries.
is that thing, like 9 part. I mean, it's like a 9 or 10 hour
I bet
documentary.
it's
but
awesome.
One of the most mind-boggling things to me was, and she didn't know this at the time, I did. So like Hank Williams Sr., he was 29 years old when he died. A lot of people don't realize that.
I didn't.
They thought he was an old man. He was 29.
I knew he was young, but I thought like 40s.
Right. No, he was 29 years old, but they were laughing and they were talking, and they had Little Jimmy Dickens on there. And he was touring with Hank back in the 40s or whatever. And Hank looked over. They was going somewhere, riding in the car together. And, of course, Hank was all liquored up anyway. And he looked at Little Jimmy Dickens and he said, you're struggling, Hoss. He said, you ain't had a hit forever, have you? And Jimmy said, no. He said, I haven't. And old Hank said, get your pen out. He said, we're going to write you one right now. And he said, he sat down and wrote, hey, good looking in 15 minutes
Wow.
on a napkin. And then he kept it for himself and never gave it to little Jimmy Dickens. So,
Dolly Parton's I Will Always Love You. She was the song girl on the Porter Wagner show.
yeah.
And he wouldn't let her out of her contract, etc. And so she wrote that song based on their relationship.
Yeah.
Like boss, and went to him and was like, I've written this song and I think it's a hit, and the only way she could get out of her contract is if she agreed to let him to produce it and have rights
Yep.
to it as well.
Yep.
And so, yeah.
Yeah, it was a very cutthroat business back then. And
Yeah,
I'm sure
I
it still
bet.
is
Yeah.
today.
Oh, absolutely. But I also think, like, when you think about when you get all those creative minds together and, like, they're just hanging out, doing whatever, and they make all of these amazing hits that we just, we're enthralled by, and they're just
When we were
goofing off on
watching
a Friday night.
that Tales from the Tour Bus, which is phenomenal. You got to watch
I've
that
seen
too from Mike Judge. It's great. But they had like Shooter Jennings on there, Waylon's son, and he's talking about, here I was 7 years old, and Dad and George Jones are out in the front yard doing their drum. It would be weird
Yeah.
to be as a kid, and all these guys, Johnny Cash, and all these guys are sitting in your living room. And I guess if that's the way you were brought up, I guess you probably didn't think nothing about it.
Probably not.
But yeah, it was really neat to hear them guys talk about it. And George Jones was another prime example. He had several hits, and then he got to drinking so bad, and then he not showing up, and whatnot. And he was basically broke. I mean, nobody would touch him. They're like, don't even book the guy. He's not going to show. And I mean, he was really hurting. I mean, all but bankrupt and this and that. And he told the band when he went and got sober and got cleaned up. And he said, I'm going to write us a hit, boys. And he said, I'm going to get us out of this. And he went and wrote He Stopped Loving Her Today, which went on to be how did they word that? It was the number one country music song of all time. I mean, it was number one for, what did they say? It was like 105 weeks or something. I mean, just a mind-boggling number, you know, and then it ended up being voted the number one country song of all time, you know, the most popular. But it was that he was that close to being bankrupt, and he wrote that song, and it pulled him out of it. I mean,
I'll be darned.
I actually saw him in concert, and probably one of the coolest concerts I've been to, just because at that time, like, I was used to the Garth Brooks kind of theatrics or whatever, and he literally sat up there on his stool, just played and sang.
Yep. I seen old Don Williams twice. I was a huge Don Williams fan, still am. Seen him twice. And that guy, you could sit in the audience and close your eyes, and you did not know if you were listening to him live or on the CD. He was
believe that.
To a T.
I tell you what, Tanya Tucker was down at what county fair was it? I went and watched.
Wasn't it Effingham?
No.
It was Cumberland.
Oh my gosh. So yeah, we go down, our friend Allison and I go down to Tanya Tucker, and it's like listening to a CD. I mean, she is open air, and she is fabulous. And so now I'm a groupie. I'm a Tanya Tucker groupie at this point.
You were before, Kelly. You were before.
I've never
Don't
been to
deny
one of her
it.
concerts, but she's another one
You
from
were
my
still a groupie.
childhood.
Exactly.
Like, I love
You
her
had the
music.
cassette tape, and we're blaring that
I
here.
had the 4 CD set.
And
Thank
to
you
me,
very much.
when I was a kid, the Judds had phenomenal songs.
Oh
I mean,
my gosh, yeah.
They really were.
She
They
did.
were.
She's got a great voice.
They do.
Absolutely fabulous voice. Yeah.
I still think the 80s had the best country music.
Oh, yeah.
I think so, too.
It beat the
Well,
70s and it beat the 90s.
I like the early 90s, though, too.
I do too.
I
The
love
early
the
stuff with
90s.
Garth and that, I really do.
Yeah.
And that's when George Strait was really hitting his stride and
Yeah.
getting going. And Alabama was very popular. Yeah, I'll agree with that. All the 80s and then into the 90s.
I'm just going to say it. I'm going to be old. They just don't make music like they used
They
to.
don't. They don't.
I'm just going to say it. And like Henry was playing some music for me earlier, and I was like, what is that? And he's like, oh, this is country. And I was like,
Give him your explanation that you heard the other day, Kelly, on how the process works versus how it used to work in Nashville.
Well, yeah, they pick the winners and losers now. I mean,
Well, yeah. So Nick and I were talking about this the other day. I was telling him I was watching a video on it, and basically, I don't remember the entire conversation we had, but the most powerful person, it used to be the most powerful people in country music were the executives on Music Row, and that's not true today. The most popular, or the most powerful, I keep saying popular, I mean powerful. The most powerful people in country music is the suburbanite mom in major cities, especially in the Southeast. So your Dallas, Houston, Mobile, Alabama, that is what country music is made for today, is your suburban housewives in major urban areas.
They pick somebody that can sing. They feed them the songs. It
is a
dress
machine.
them.
It's a machine. They're all the same, and it is meant because that is their biggest market is the suburban housewife.
And that's the difference. You weren't going to pull Waylon Jennings off the street and say, Waylon,
No.
you have to comb your hair and take off the leather coat and do this.
Yeah.
That wasn't going to fly.
No, it was
Not happening.
well, I feel like you and I watched a documentary, and just the way that they present stars or up and coming singers or whatever is different now. Before, you would take your tape to the radio station and you try to whatever and get them to play you. And now there's so many different steps you have to take before your song even gets played on the radio.
But remember, that's where
totally
Garth,
different.
revolutionized that too. He went straight to Walmart, wasn't it? And just sold the music straight to them and cut the middleman out.
see, I don't
There was a
remember.
There was something on that,
a huge deal that he revamped the entire system.
But he was also one of them that held out the longest in selling his music to like iTunes and Amazon Music. Like he's like, no, I don't want it so that they can only listen to one song. I want it that they have to listen to the whole collection of the CD at once, and
On a side note on that, the one Kid Rock poster that was for sale in the merchandise area had a lady doing a certain activity on an album. So they'd cut something up and put it in a row. And the caption was, try this on an MP3.
Nice.
Which I thought was pretty rock and roll, Pretty rock and roll. Funny and pretty rock and roll. I did not purchase the poster because I have no place to hang a poster like that. But I'm not condoning the activity, but I saw the humor in it.
Right.
Do you remember when Shania Twain came on the music scene and she was so like half naked in the videos, and that
Absolutely.
was like
I remember
appalling.
every
Do you
second of
remember
it.
that?
Leopard pants.
My sisters and I used to call how do I say this while being polite? Nick calls them popular girls. He's like, she was popular. But girls that maybe dated around a lot, we would call them Shanasty after Shania. That's
Yep.
not nice.
But she did not deserve that. She was. She
No,
still
I
is
love
a
her
nice-
now.
nice
I
woman.
love her now. But in
concert,
the
saw
early
her.
90s, you were
She's
like,
good.
she is showing her belly button on a video. How
Yeah.
dare you?
Which,
and now I'm fine with
You know,
it.
she left the country music scene fairly, she jumped to pop,
Yeah.
pretty quick in that whole deal. I mean, didn't stick around in what I would call true country,
Yeah.
In fact, she was probably one of the first true crossovers.
Yeah.
Ironically, she caught a lot of flack for showing her navel on a body that could pull it off, and now you can see that at any Walmart in America.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Trendsetter.
With women that should not be showing their
Yeah.
navel, but they have no choice because their shirts physically aren't long enough.
Exactly.
I do love her. No, I mean, like, I loved her music then too, and she's another one that when her songs come on, it just takes me back to my teen years. Yeah.
That is one thing about music. A song can
gosh.
take you back
Yeah.
in the blink
Song
of an eye.
remembers when.
It
Song
does.
remembers when.
It can
Yep.
transform you.
Especially if something was happening,
Yeah.
and you relate that song with that activity or whatever.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's pretty easy to.
It's
pretty
hard
well.
to find any good country stations. That's why I don't listen to much radio anymore. I wish you could find a country station that just played what I would call some of the older country, but they'll play 2 songs of that and then 18 of the new pop stuff that I have
Do
no
you not
desire.
have like Amazon Prime Music?
No, I don't.
Oh, Tony, it's like $8 a month, and you just go to it's like 1970s country music, and that is all you're gonna get. No,
Yep.
no ads or anything. And that's all
I
you're
need to
gonna
look into
get.
that.
Yeah.
No, I've got everything downloaded on my phone, into the MP3 player or whatever, but I've about wore that out. I'm ready for another selection. But I've got a ton of songs. I mean, it's into the thousands of songs, but
I have this playlist on Amazon Prime called Music from My Childhood. I was actually listening to it today. I was up in Pekin, Illinois, and on the way home, I pulled that out and started listening to it. And it's like Oak Ridge Boys,
Yep.
the Y'all Come Back Saloon, like just all these
It's
songs
funny.
that my mom and dad used
one
to
of
play.
the best bands of the 80s was Highway 101. And I mentioned it to
Oh,
people,
yeah.
and people look at me like I've got 2 heads. They're like, I've never heard of them.
No.
I'm like, man, they were phenomenal.
They were
back
good.
in the day.
Yeah.
And a cool name.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, there was a lot of good bands back then.
There were. It was great music.
Yep. And in fact, a lot of them are getting to where they're retiring. Brooks and Dunn and
Yeah.
a lot of them.
Brooks and Dunn's coming back.
Oh, are they really?
Well, I saw an ad for it. It was on the scrolling banner deal before the concert.
No kidding.
Yeah, they're coming back.
It's kind of funny, too, when you think, I just use Brooks and Dunn for an example, or even Alan Jackson. Vince Gill is another one. I was never a huge Vince
I
Gill
never liked
fan.
his music much.
But when you start looking at the number 1 songs that they had,
yeah.
it's mind-boggling, especially Vince Gill, because I was never a Vince Gill fan, never heard his music much, but he's got like 30 number 1, or whatever it is. It's a whole shit pot full of number 1 songs. And it's like, where did all these get played at? Because I never heard them, and not that I wanted to hear
I'll
them.
be honest with you. When he come on, I switch stations.
Yeah, I'm the same way. I think he's a good person. He used to host the CMAs and whatnot. But as far as the music, I didn't care for.
He's a
it.
great guitar player and whatnot, but I never cared for most. Most of his music was in a high pitched voice. So
Right.
Yeah.
I'm out right there. Obviously,
he was the original Rascal Flatts. In my
Yes.
I can't stand Rascal Flatts. I will smash the radio in before I listen to Rascal.
I'm confident that's the only station they play in hell. Is Rascal Flatts on repeat.
Yeah, exactly. I can't do it.
I think so. My mom and her sisters loved Vince Gill, but they were raised in a very musical family. And so I think they had a very deep appreciation for his vocal range and how he could hit notes. But for me, it never did anything for me. I wasn't a huge Vince Gill fan at all.
I like the artists, like I say, like with Don Williams. Of course, he was very old country, not a lot of hype to his songs. But to me, you'll hear these guys on a CD, and then when you hear him in concert, you're like, how the hell did this guy ever get a record deal? He sounds awful.
Oh, my gosh.
They mix it so much. I got more respect for the guys that you can't tell any difference.
I'm going to tell you, and I'm going to get hate mail over this, but I'm going to tell you, the worst person I have ever seen in concert. It was at a county fair in Iowa. It was when I was working for Deere. A friend and I went up there and watched Kenny Rogers, and it was horrible.
Really?
He couldn't hit a note in open air if it killed him.
No.
It was miserable. However, the classic Crystal Gale opened for him.
Nice.
Don't it make your brown eyes blue? And she was awesome, but Kenny Rogers was miserable. And he Kenny Rogers' Greatest Hits was like on repeat growing up. I mean, that was fabulous.
And as far as on the CD, yeah, it was great. But
yeah. Oh, he couldn't sing in open air for anything.
It makes you wonder how that ever worked out like that.
Have you ever been to any other concerts where the opening act was better than the main act? I saw the Foo Fighters and Chili Peppers in college. The Foo Fighters were awesome.
Were they?
The Chili Peppers is the worst concert I've ever been to in my life.
Wait a minute. What am I thinking of? Isn't David Grohl in both of those?
No, he was in Nirvana.
But then he went to
the Foo Fighters. Yeah.
Okay. That's
actually
what I was thinking.
It was Papa Roach, the Foo Fighters, then
the Peppers.
Red Hot Chili Peppers. The Chili Peppers were the worst of the three.
Wow.
I'll be there.
By far. Like you could tell it was just another stop on their checklist. It was in Champaign. They weren't in, they're like B-rate venue.
Yeah.
You always see them dancing around and flopping around. They literally just stood there, ding, 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 played their few songs, and they were off the stage. Like it was horrible.
No kidding.
When I was growing up and showing cattle, it was like Hank Williams Jr. was at the state fair every single year, and everybody, I never went and saw him, but everybody was like, well, it's a bit of a gamble.
I was never a huge fan of him.
They're like, if he's drunk, it's going to be a horrible concert, but if he's sober, it's going to be a fabulous concert. So it's kind of Russian roulette whether or not it's going to be great or not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He had some good songs, but I was never one of them diehard, like fans or whatever.
Yeah.
I like Hank a lot. I was not necessarily a diehard concert person. Like,
right.
I've already paid for the CD or the cassette or whatever.
Yeah.
Like, they're not screaming at me. I don't have to fight the crowd, et cetera, et cetera. But I've been to several. But
I've seen Alabama twice.
That'd be a good one.
Kenny Chesney.
Kenny Chesney puts on a phenomenal
once,
concert.
I think I might have seen him twice. Don Williams twice. Seen Def Leppard once. That was awesome. And that's probably about it. I'm the same way. I was never big into concerts.
And we're not close to.
No, I mean, you got to drive.
When we had Nashville North in Taylorville, I saw Little Texas there once. They were
really
good.
That'd be good.
Yeah,
Yep.
back when God Bless Texas was their big hit.
Yep.
Yeah.
I've seen Reba several times, Mark Chestnut, Diamond Rio, and who am I thinking of? Oh, I can't remember their names. That sing and the race is on.
Oh, Sawyer Brown.
Sawyer Brown. They're good. They're great. They're great. George Strait, Garth Brooks a couple times.
I guess you guys don't have cable TV now. So Sawyer Brown, I think the lead singer, I think his name was
Mark Miller.
Yep. And there's one of the guys that's in that group. Their daughter has a show on RFD TV, and her name is Madison Brown. And I'm trying to think of what the name of it is. Something down with Madison Brown. And I've only watched it one time because we don't get RFD either. He was on vacation. I happened to see it. But, yeah, her dad was somebody within that band.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
I never liked him much because he wore a John Deere hat in that first video I saw of him. Exactly. So I'm like, well, these guys can't be trusted.
Yeah. Let's go back to that cancel culture conversation.
Oh, that reminds me. I told him I would let him surprise you in person, but a good friend of mine, and I won't mention any names just for the sake of not putting him on the spot, but he is an engineer for John Deere. And he hit me up and he's like, can I come down and be on a podcast? He's like, I got some stuff I want to talk to Nick about. And I said, you just come right on down.
Come right on down.
Bring her down.
Yeah.
So I thought he said he would be around, was it sometime in May or sometime here in the next few months? I said, you call us and you can just come right on in. Because I said, I got some stuff I wouldn't mind talking to you about too. So, and when I told him, I said, now great, it's all in good fun, but I said that might make for a good interview. So.
I heckle the Deere people, but I give the case engineers and the Hagco engineers just as hard a time under my breath, just not as publicly. I wasn't too impressed with some things I was working on here recently on the engineering behind it or lack thereof. So
yeah, it's easy to get frustrated. It really is. Yep. Did you ever work with many engineers at Deere? Was around?
Oh yeah.
Was that like a rivalry? Like you guys were here and the engineer, well, the stupid engineers done, you know what I mean? Or was it everybody just went along to get along?
No, I mean, there were stressful moments and there was fun moments. I mean, of course, coming from marketing, we wanted everything. We wanted everything. And we wanted it yesterday.
So maybe that's why these engineers are so bad. You pushy marketing people are forcing this stuff.
Oh, marketing screws up a ton of stuff.
Absolutely. I'm trying to remember. I'm going to screw this up. But engineering, their motto was, let's see, you can have it fast. You can have it quality. You can have it pretty. You can have it... I can't remember what cheap. Yes. You can have it fast. You can have it pretty. You can have it quality. You can have it cheap. You can have 2 of the 4, Kelly. which two of the four do you want?
Yeah.
And that was just always the joke between us. But no, I mean, I worked with them quite a bit when I worked at Precision Farming because we would be on product committees together or whatever. And they're great people. And I remember one, he was like a PhD in electrical engineering or whatever. And I told on that one podcast how I did like the 8-12 week precision farming, road show, teaching classes or whatever. And people would ask me questions. And so I'd get back to the office and I'd be like, they asked me this question. I wasn't quite sure how to explain it, blah, blah, blah. And so he was an older gentleman and he was single and I could tell I just made him nervous as all get out, And so I'd be in his cubicle and he's trying to explain to me some technical hyperextended carrier smoothing of the position receiver waves or whatever, and I'd be like, I need you to explain it to me again in a different way. And it's like on time 7, I'm asking questions and I'd be like, so blah blah. I'm trying to find an analogy that really I can explain in class. It isn't an engineering thing. And he'd finally get it, and I'd be like, I get it, Fred. I get it now.
Yep.
And he's like, okay, now get out of my cubicle.
Yeah, exactly.
You've been here. You have overstayed your welcome. Go to your side of the office, Kelly.
Yep. You don't know how many times they're working on something. I have so bad wanted to go get an engineer and be like, you need to explain this because you literally, if you would have moved this hydraulic line a quarter of an inch, I could have got this bolt or plug or whatever out. But now I can't. Now it turned into a 45-minute job. And it's like, you cannot tell me you did not purposely engineer it that way because you couldn't have screwed it up any other way.
I think a bunch of that shit is just so many models come out so quick now. There's not ample development time. And marketing dictates some stupidity in that and a lot of good things, but they want it this way. And the engineering said, well, we really ain't got time to do it right. So to make marketing happen, we're going to do it like this, like 8,000 John Deere tractors. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think, don't they have a ton of hose coiled up in the front?
Yes.
Because that hood was supposed to tilt. But it was time to release the tractor, and the hood tilt guys didn't get with some of the other guys, and the way it was supposed to tilt, they couldn't do it. So they just put a bunch of hose in there so you could split it without having to jack with something because there was no way around it.
No kidding.
That was the quick and easy, dirty solution on it, if I remember right. I don't remember all the details.
I wonder, when they go to design a tractor, so you've obviously got, and I don't know what you would call these people, but the people who the tractor is going to look this certain way. We're not designing the motor, nothing else. We're in charge of making the tractor look like this. Yes. So do they come first and say, this is what we want it to look like, you make it fit? Or do the engineers build the engine and everything and say, this is what we got, now you build the hood around it and make it look, what comes
I think
first?
they make the tractor and they style around it, would be my guess. But
I didn't know just because of some of the stupid things I've seen. I was like, well, I really don't know what the right answer is here because
I think it's I've never worked for Waterloo Works or anything like that, but it's a I would assume it's a collaboration along the way because that's precision farming. That's how it was.
Well, at this point, you can do a lot of that stuff on computer. In the old days, like you've seen all the old IH books, they got a guy literally with wood.
Yeah.
I mean, he's got a sander and a
Gonna
planer.
mock it up, yeah.
And he's like, hold on a second. You want a hood? Let me get out some wood, and I'll carve you one, Bartles and James style, here with my seltzers. And here in a minute, I'll have you something.
Yeah.
It's a little different scenario now. Then it probably was. Here's what it is. Style the hood around it.
Yeah.
Because
But they have to work inside some parameters.
well, no doubt.
Okay.
No doubt. Yeah.
Yeah, I always wondered which way that went, or if it, like you say, it sort of went along, simultaneously.
On the older stuff, though, a lot of your major styling never changed.
Right.
A 4430 looks an awful lot like a 4960.
Yeah.
In the grand scheme.
Right.
They didn't change.
It might be a little
it got
bit
a little wider, a little
right.
longer, got a little bigger, but it didn't.
And
there
then
weren't
old
drastic
tractors,
changes.
a 1066, you had all kinds of room under the hood on, up around the motor when, it wasn't like
there wasn't
crammed.
drastic changes on some, but you didn't have emission scrap to fit in there and all the other stuff. So, yeah.
It is amazing though how companies do that. Which I guess they've got it figured out. They've been doing it long enough. But when you really revamp a tractor, redesign this thing from the ground up to make it look nice and to cram as much shit under the hood as what they have to now. It's amazing that the hoods on a tractor ain't 4 foot wide and 9 foot tall.
No doubt, but you do think they'd hire one guy just to go around with a pen and a paper and be like, okay, we got to unscrew that, we got to undo that, like little things, like on a first generation Magnum or second or third, all the good ones. The hydraulic lines come down from the steering and they go to this nice little block, but that's not underneath the hole in the floorboard. It's about 6 inches in front of that, right where you can't get it. We had 3 generations of them, we never fixed it. It's a 10-minute fix. It probably worked great coming down the assembly line. Wasn't too great for anybody that didn't have the cab off, though.
Yeah.
You know, wouldn't have taken squat to fix it, but then it's new part numbers. It's a whole nother process.
Yeah.
Costs this, it costs that. So,
Yeah, it's mind-boggling. I mean, the way that all fits together. And I would think combines would be to the 10th power worse than what a tractor would be. Just because, you know, I mean, you got all your internal parts plus your pulleys, your belts, your chains, your sprockets.
That's always my frustrating part, as much as I love red combines. It's like, how many series do we essentially sell the 1400 series over and over and over with new styling, badging, some modifications here and there? And it's like, there's some problems that existed originally that 4 generations later, we're looking into.
Yeah.
You know, it's like you had to get to 4 generations to get all 4 side panels to open.
Yeah, right.
That was 25 years of production.
That is not one of the 4
get-
that they're
Yeah, yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like, we're going to give you 1 per series. 1400, only the left opens. 1600, the left and the right open.
Yeah.
2100, the left, the right, and the back left opens. 23, you can finally open all 4.
Right. And that's simply cutting the sheet metal and putting a hinge in it.
Yes.
Is pretty
It
much
was-
the gist of
It
that.
wasn't Scientists of Rockets. Yes.
And it just makes you wonder who signs off on that.
Yeah.
I cannot fathom that.
And my big pet peeve these days is, near as I can tell, every engineer must be about 5'5", about $110.
Yeah.
Because I can tell you one thing, having big hands and big forearms is not advantageous to working on modern day equipment. Because my hand and my arm get stuck right about there, as you can tell from the multiple cuts on my arm right now. Everything I try to do, it doesn't fit.
No.
Little people, they're circus dwarfs.
I would believe that.
Yes. Yeah, it's very frustrating.
So we are going to blame you marketing people.
Yeah, it's marketing skills. We found a new target. It's marketing people. They're the ones dictating to the engineers. I feel like on the you ever seen Office Space? I take the orders and I take them to the engineers. Oh, so you physically take them? No, my secretary does that.
Yeah.
It's the marketing
do
people.
you got any good marketing, people that you worked with there that don't work there now that like we could get down here and just have this big round table discussion, where nobody has to be in fear of losing their job. They already don't work there,
Yeah.
and
we could just have someone anonymous, like muffle their voice.
There you go.
Like
Yes.
the FBI tapes or
Yes.
something. Let's do that.
Perfect.
Yes, absolutely. I would have to think through that. I'm sure I probably have some people that I know that have left.
And you told me he's a good friend of ours, and he'll never hear this podcast, but Dave White. He
yes.
works for Sloan Implement now.
Yes.
He's a manager at the
I worked with
Atwood
him
store.
on territory. Yeah.
Know Dave real well.
Dave's
Really good
great.
guy. Yep. And
Dave, I liked sitting next to Dave in meetings because what he was going to say under his breath was way more educational than anything that was going to be said out loud.
and of course he come up through deer. His dad was a dealer for years and years and years, and so
I went to college with his brother Jared.
Yeah.
And I worked with Jared at Precision Farming for several years.
Last I knew, he was maybe Cummins or one of the companies.
I know that he left Deere for one of the truck
I
companies.
think
don't know.
Dave told me at one time he was. If it wasn't with Cummins, it was like you say, whether it was Peterbilt or somebody. I thought it was Cummins.
Yeah.
But I don't really know him at all. I've met him one time years ago at the farm show, but know Dave really well and really good guy. But
Yeah, he is.
I think he was ready to move on from the traveling, and the corporate world. Just time to stay home and.
Good guy though.
Oh, very good
Very
guy.
good
Yep.
guy.
See, it just always comes back to you. Some point in time, you got to kill your career to take care of your family. Sonny. That's why I got out of tractor pulling. I had to sell it.
Oh yeah, we ain't even covered that yet. Yep. Yeah.
Kelly needs full-time attention. Marketing. Marketing killed the engineering side. it just took us down.
Yep. I need to put this on Facebook now since I got this big Facebook page. That,
Happy birthday, by the way.
Oh yeah, thanks. Prayers. But should we start this? Like the wife was talking earlier with the Garth Brooks room. That your wife's a raging drug addict. You just had to give it up.
No.
Don't want to go that far.
No. I wouldn't say raging.
Okay. Yeah.
Casual.
Thanks. Talk about the hate mail that would come in.
Yeah, no doubt. No doubt.
Yep. So yeah, I guess you launched the old pulling tractor.
Yeah. We sold it the other day. Had a guy interested in it, and
How many years did you run? What I'm going to call it the pro. Was it always a pro stock that you ran?
Well, we had a farm stock before that, but
Yeah.
we
But
pulled pro stock since '98.
since 98, and then farm stock, you probably pulled 4 or 5 years.
From 91 or 91 to 97.
Yep. So it's been a while.
It's been a while. Yeah.
Well, I mean,
It was time.
Yeah, and I mean, now it's not like if you wanted to screw around with your kids, you couldn't, build
Well, that's the thing.
a 1466 and run it here local and
we
just
could.
goof
And
off.
The kids got so much stuff going on.
Right.
Like I don't have time to be gone for all
Right.
that. That was the big thing.
Yep.
It's going to a good home. This guy had asked about it right after we first built it.
Yep.
So he's always had first chance at it. So
Yep.
he happened to call on the right day, and Deb was in the mood. And like I said, I got plenty of other stuff to do with Kelly and the kids and whatnot. And I'm not saying I'm not out of the sport. I'll still be involved in it,
for
still
sure.
work on them, et cetera.
Yep. And your dad's no spring chicken.
No,
I mean, not that
exactly.
he's some feeble old man, but I mean, he's
They don't
just
get around all that great.
Right.
A hot summer day, the last place he wants to be is trekking across the fairgrounds.
Yeah,
So,
exactly.
Well, I'll still be around on a lot of it. It's just
At least-
time to do some other things.
At least now it's selective. It's like,
Yeah.
hey, I want to go to this poll this weekend just to watch, see them friends, but I don't have to. But
Don't have to, but I can. Yeah. So, like I said, I never thought we'd really get rid of it. I just always figured we'd kind of phase off, run it a few times here and there, and kind of park it in the corner. But,
Yep. So Louisville was the last pass
yeah,
on that.
that's the last hurrah. It was actually sold before I went down there.
Yeah.
But,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. You never know. You may get back into it someday. You never-
I don't know. At this point in time, I don't know. We'll see. I'm never going to say never.
Right.
I mean, I don't know. Kelly may get tired of me being around the house and be like, hey, you need to build a tractor and get the hell out of here.
Exactly.
You never know. You never know.
And it's a definite
She'll make you build a
possibility.
John Deere. You got his
Marketing dictates it, Yeah. They're going to dictate that. Next thing you know, I'm in a shop. I got to get out there and get it done and get out of here,
Yeah.
But now, I mean, for now, it's just too many other things going on.
Yeah. Well, we're both at that age right now where the kids run a nonstop. That will probably thin out. Instead of the kids all playing 16 sports, they're going to narrow that down and do volleyball, maybe softball, or whatever.
But,
And
I mean, a buddy of mine had told me years ago when my kids were toddlers, we'll call them. He's like, you think, they need you around now? He's like, you haven't seen nothing yet. He's like, it gets worse as they get older.
Yeah.
He's like, it's not till they're in college where it starts to go back the other way. And I'm like, oh, yeah, whatever. No, he's right.
Yeah.
They need me for more stuff now than ever. And they're pretty good about it. And they're happy to go with me on a lot of stuff. But
yeah.
it's just you can't always be gone,
A really wise person said to me before we were married or even had kids, and it was somebody that was 15 years older or so of me, and her kids were in high school, et cetera. And she's like, Kelly, you think that your infants and your toddlers need your presence. And she's like, I'm not saying they do, but she's like, remember your teenagers need you just as much, if not more, as your 6-month-old. She's like, in today's world, your presence is needed.
Yeah.
Just because they can dress themselves, feed themselves, et cetera, does not mean that your present isn't needed.
Yeah.
And
I would believe that.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was really, really wise advice.
Yeah. Yeah, and it seems like, sports keep everybody busy, busier than we were. Maybe when we were kids, we didn't know. I mean, I never played sports. My brothers, by the time they were sophomores in high school or even freshmen, they didn't play any by then. So maybe I didn't see what everybody else. But it seemed like when we were kids, we had a friend that he might have done just baseball and basketball, or maybe just one or the other. But now it's like kids do track, baseball, basketball, football. I mean, they just every sport that comes up, track.
And there's summer leagues or whatever for every sport too. It gets to be a full-time gig, like I said, and you want to support them as much as you can. But
I've often said I've seen people around here literally almost go bankrupt by having daughters and sons do all these camps and this, that, and the other, so they can get a scholarship. It's like, well, you just screwed away $80,000. You could have sent them to U of I for 5 years for what you spent on these stupid camps and running here and there in hotel rooms. I mean,
no doubt, happens all the time.
Yeah,
and that whole deal is getting worse and worse and worse.
It is. Yeah, and that's I shouldn't say that I'm dreading it, but with our daughter coming up in volleyball, she's going to be getting into the side leagues and all that. And I don't regret it. I don't mean to make it sound that way, but I've got to make a living too. I can't be sitting in volleyball bleachers, 9 nights a week and everything.
No.
I just can't, and I'm not.
I don't think they expect you to, though. I mean, like Nick Colby is, her daughter. I mean, she does the clubs and all of that for volleyball, et cetera. But she's really understanding about the fact that her tournaments are in the spring and Nick is in the field in the spring. She has never, ever said once. And I think growing up, I was very understanding about that too. Like I understood that what spring and fall were about as far as our farm went. And It wasn't that big of a deal. I will say last night I was at a track meet that went on for 4 hours in 37-degree temperatures with rain. And I got in the car and I turned to her and I said 2 words, Scholar Bowl.
Yeah.
I said, it's inside. It's temperature controlled. I said, I don't care. I know your goal is to break the school's long jump record. Your mother doesn't care.
We'll have the party anyway, and we'll say you did. That's all that matters.
Yes. Let's pretend you did. I'll buy you a T-shirt, a sweatshirt.
Marketing. Always trying to say something.
Spin doctor that shit, so I don't have to be in 37-degree track weather ever
they
again.
probably keep those records online nowadays. We could pay a hacker to get it.
Yeah,
Pay somebody
yes.
$20. Hack the records. Yeah, we're good. Ferris Bueller could do it back in the 80s. We
No
could do
doubt.
it.
Right. Absolutely. It was so freaking cold.
Oh.
Miserable.
Yeah, that would be awful. This weather, I'm sick of it.
I know.
I can't handle it anymore. I'm over it.
Yeah,
Rain
I'm
and
ready.
cold and nasty.
Rains every 2 days.
Year ago today, I started planting beans.
Really?
Yep,
Yeah.
April 8th.
I never thought I'd see the day where I say I'm sick of chili soup. I'm sick of it. We made it last night and it was perfect for after a 37-degree track meet. And I'm just like, I am so ready just for summer grilling and
It's not like
tomatoes
this
from the
has
garden.
been an overly harsh winter, but it's just drug on and on.
It's been colder than normal.
It has.
Seems like anyway.
Yeah, and I don't know, and we're not talking like bitterly cold as to 0, but we're like right now, our average high should be 63. Today it was 38.
Yeah.
It just won't let go.
And raining.
Yeah. And sleeting and snowing and, and everything in between.
Had 3 of the 4 seasons today. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not much summer, but
I'm over it. Sick and tired of it.
yeah, most definitely.
Wonder where my wife went. She must have got lost.
I don't know.
sometimes that happens with Drunky the Clown, but I didn't think she was that far in this time.
No, she's literally had 2, which we're getting load on. But
She wasn't slurring yet. Or anything.
I thought she said her sister was coming over, so
Oh.
she must have had to run upstairs.
We'll have to check and see if she can say statistics.
Yeah, statistics.
That's the code word. That's how we know how far in she is.
Yeah. Yep. Well, what do you guys think? You want to cut this one off here?
Yeah, we better
This
wrap
turned
this one
into
up.
more of what, a country music podcast than
It
it
was
did
fun,
a
though.
farming podcast. But
great.
it's kind of reminiscing, because
Yeah.
I've always said there's nothing that can take you back any quicker than music can.
That's true. That's true.
And I used to listen to music religiously nonstop, and now I'll sit in a tractor combine for...
I'll just sit in silence. a lot
I
of
will
times.
too.
If
8
I'm not on
hours,
the
10,
phone,
12
I'll
hours
just
a
sit
day for weeks on end and never turn it on. After Rush Limbaugh died, there's nothing to listen
Yeah.
to. And I
there.
just
Since Rush is off, yeah.
can't do her.
I like the silence. I do.
Yeah.
I hate silence, but I don't mind the tractor. Just listen to the engine. Or
It's just at
or I
home
talk-
that
or I
you feel
talk
the
on phone.
I can't say it. The necessity.
Yeah.
The necessity
like
of
silence at
filling the
home.
silence.
I don't like silence at home. That does irritate me.
In the morning, I just want silence. And Nick is like,
I'm one of those weird people, Tony, where I'm a night owl and a morning person.
Yes.
It's a dangerous combination for everyone.
fabulous, let me tell you.
Nothing angers Kelly more than when I wake up and I'm
I'm the same way. Morning,
on.
I'm ready to roll. I'm
Yeah.
pestering the kids, running here,
Yes,
running there.
that's
I
the
just
thing.
move from one
pesters.
person to the next.
too.
He does.
I've annoyed everybody, but I move on.
Yep.
I'm the weird specimen that I am not a nighttime person nor a morning person. I peak from about 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. That's my peak operating time.
In an hour, that's lunch.
Yeah, exactly.
I do my best work then. But yeah, Nick was like, I'm awake. Let's pester.
Yep, that's how I am.
Well, I only pester those who aren't fully awake.
Right, me too. It's the
Which
same
is
way I
all
am.
of us.
That's your own fault, though. Learn to be a morning person. I don't even drink coffee. Think how wired I'd be on that.
Yep, I'll go in and literally jump into
Yes.
the bed with the kids
Yep.
while they're sound asleep and wake them up and
Yep.
rough them up. And Cora is not a fan of that at all. Henry tolerates it. He don't really care for it, but he tolerates it just fine. Joe, she could sort of care less, but Cora is not a fan at all. Leave me alone.
She's
so
a
then I gotta,
kindred spirit.
yeah. So then I gotta mess with her even more. Then
Max will try to hide. Colby, she's appalled that I'm in a room. If I open the door, it's like, get out. Get out. Okay. Sorry to interrupt you.
yeah,
One of these days she's going to cut me in my sleep.
yeah, she probably will. She probably will. Yep. But, well, what do you think?
Yep.
Cut her off here.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we didn't mean to bore you guys with country music, but hey, it is what it is. If you don't like it, don't listen to it. Thanks for tuning in, guys. We'll see you next time.